everybody. Welcome to the JT
Hey!
Pitstop. I am Joe. That is Trevor. That's why we're called JT Pitstop. We just wrapped up. It's a little bit late, but that gives us more stuff to talk about, actually. We're a little bit late. The race ran a little bit later than we had actually anticipated because, everyone decided to drive like idiots. Um, but at the end of the night, at the end of 150 laps, Martin Truex Jr. walked away. He didn't win a race last year, but he came out swinging in the first race. I call it a race. It's not like a points race or anything, but the first event of 2023 went to the driver of the number 19 Joe Gibbs Toyota, Martin Truex Jr. But that's not the whole story. It took us a long way to get there, and the action started before the cars even hit the track for racing, with some incidents in practice that I want to talk about before we get into the heat racing. So starting off, Ty Gibbs, brand new driver to Joe Gibbs Racing, driving that 54. His car caught on fire during
What was
practice.
that?
Yeah,
What was up with that?
yeah,
He didn't even hit anything.
yeah. It just something caught the foam on fire, and it set the car on fire, and that was a pretty big incident from practice. And then we had our first incidents of tempers flaring between AJ Allmendinger and Chase Briscoe, kind of getting into each other in practice. Trevor, what are your thoughts on those incidents there between the
I
fire and
mean,
the tempers flaring in practice?
so the fire was kind of crazy. I mean, he didn't even hit anything. Last year we seen fires with the Fords, right?
Yeah,
But it was after they had made contact. It had seemed like most of the time a little bit of the exhaust hitting the foam. They had a fire.
and a lot
I
of it
thought
was
they,
from like rubber buildup under the
yeah,
wheel
that too,
wells,
yeah,
and that
right,
was
yeah,
setting it on fire. So I don't
yeah.
really think this was from rubber buildup. Like I
No, it
don't know
was
if they ever
due.
said
It
what
was,
caused it.
yeah. Um, And then with the whole AJ thing, like, dude's got a temper. I mean, he's an aggressive
Yeah,
driver, but the first practice of an exhibition race and you send someone off into the wall, I mean,
yeah,
hey, have
yeah. I
fun,
mean,
I mean,
yeah, like that's setting the stage for a season where I think someone's gonna join Ross Chastain on the Don't Give a Fuck tour this year. So you
oh
know,
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, he's definitely on that one for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. But then
yeah.
we wound up with Justin Haley on the pole for the Clash,
Dude,
fastest qualifier. So what do you think about that?
that's a fabulous story right
Yeah,
there. I mean, I never expected to see him on the pole at
yeah.
all. You know, um, he's a talented driver. Don't get
Oh,
me
for sure.
wrong, but this was not a track or the place where I thought that I would see him on the pole, and it was pretty cool to see him get up there. Colleague
Yeah.
racing also. I mean, I think they deserve it with how much they're doing for the sport
Well, especially
all
since
across
it's
the board.
only the second full time season for colleague racing in the Cup Series. So
Right. Yeah.
that being able to put fast time down on a tiny little short track like that is pretty big story actually.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's actually kind of cool, because I don't think this would have happened 2 years ago
No,
with the old car, and all of the engineering and everything that kind of came about with the old car versus this car. I think it's actually kind of cool to see him, in a smaller team, right? Like I
right,
know they're not super small, but they're a smaller, not powerhouse team to come out and like kind of set a precedent of
yeah,
hey, we're here, we have somewhat speed you know
yeah. All right, so the Clash event consisted of four heat races, two last chance qualifiers, and then the main event that was 150 laps, split up into two parts with a halftime break. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about that first heat race because I honestly thought the heat races were the best racing of the weekend in those heat races.
Unfortunately, my dumbass thought that the racing started at 6 o'clock.
See, the problem there was, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit, is everywhere where NASCAR was advertising the Clash starting, they only
Yeah,
talked about the main event starting. They
right.
didn't advertise the heat racing or the last chance qualifiers or anything about the format. They were just like, here's the clash, 8 o'clock Eastern time. This is the clash, and you're like, well, what about the heat racing and stuff? Is that starting at 8? But the heat racing started at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, I messed up, and I didn't. I watched the highlights, so I know what happened in the heats, but I didn't actually get to watch
Yeah.
the heats.
We got a question in the chat real quick. Has the new car been a welcome change? Is it bringing good racing compared to the older car? Trevor, your thoughts?
Mm, it's okay.
Yeah.
I am a very big fan of the 2000s cars with a ton of horsepower.
Yeah.
Even the car of tomorrow had a bunch of horsepower, and when they first came out with the Gen 6 car, it had a bunch of horsepower. I I do like a lot of horsepower in the driver's hands. It made a whole different type of racing,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that the new car is very good in getting more people successful within NASCAR. Okay, you don't
Yeah.
just have Hendrick and Gibbs, RCR. You got all of these other teams that have been able to go out, buy these cars, put them on the track, and be successful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's good, but I think it could be improved. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like if you directly compare the next gen car to the Gen 6, I think it's a vast improvement.
Right.
At least over the 19, 20, 21 aero package that we had with the
Okay.
550
Yeah.
horsepower. Like
Yeah.
if you directly compare it to the car that was just before the next gen, I think it is a vast improvement over that. Obviously, it's no 2014 Gen 6 car,
Right.
and it's no COT, it's no early 2000s car. It's really hard to compare those. But if you just compare it to the the car we had from 19, 20, and 21 to what we had last year in 22 and moving forward into 2023, I think it's a vast improvement on the bigger tracks. I still think they need to work on the short tracks some more, which it doesn't sound like they've done that. And I'm hoping that they actually
But they're
change that.
bringing rain tires.
They
They're
are, they
bringing
are
rain
bringing
tires.
rain tires. Rain tires are going to be very exciting this year. I'm actually hoping we get a chance for those to come into play because I think that's going to be absolutely wild, and I'm looking forward to it.
But
Um,
yeah, no, I completely 100% agree with you. Compared to the 19, 20, 21 car, it is a very big improvement to that.
yeah,
But, you know, being the diehard NASCAR fan I am, I like the car that's, sitting on your poster back there.
yeah, of
That
course.
that was my era.
That
But
was a great car.
yeah. Well, not I mean, that was a great time in racing.
Right. That was still a good car. But let's talk about that heat race. There was only one yellow in the heat race. It was a 25 lap race. Eric Almirola won that race, and that advanced the 10, the 48, the 31, the 42, and the 22 into the main event. What did you think of that first heat race?
I thought it was cool to hear that Amarola won.
Yeah,
Right? I mean, he was going to retire, then he's not retiring. He comes into the first, race of the year or I mean, technically that was the first race of the
right.
year, right? The heat race was the first race of the year in a way.
Yeah,
Comes into that and wins.
yeah,
I mean, like that's and he was also, if I'm not mistaken, he was really fast in practice too.
yeah. He
So
was.
it was just kind of qualifying. Qualifying was kind of weird. It was so late they couldn't get the tires to heat up, and I actually
Yeah,
seen a lot of people I thought were gonna do good in qualifying weren't where I thought they would be.
yeah,
So that was awesome to see that he uh he came out and won that.
yeah.
Um, there was a incident,
Yeah, that
wasn't
was.
there?
Yeah, there was one wreck. It was pretty early in the race. Harrison Burton got spun around.
Didn't he spin on his own?
I can't remember. I think he just spun on his own.
I think he just came out of a corner and spun on his own, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think that was because that was the only actual caution in that first heat race.
Yeah, well,
Was
which
for Harrison
anybody
Burton
spins,
spinning.
I mean, it blocks the whole track at that
Oh
point.
yeah,
So
that track is so small, so narrow that like as soon as a car is sideways like that, you got to throw the yellow. It's
Yeah.
just it's too quick to come around and get those cars turned around.
Yep.
Moving on, Heat Race 2, which was probably the most eventful of the 4 heat races.
Yeah.
This was the stacked heat race where you had a lot of talented, really fast drivers vying for that spot. We had Harvick got into Cindric, he got into pretty much everybody else in the field. Martin Truex Jr. wound up winning that heat race, which we obviously know we went on to win the main event there. And winning that heat race was kind of the first step towards a solid run in the main event.
Yep.
Um, and then there was a little bit of drama on the final lap between Chase Elliott and Ricky Stenhouse getting into each other, and then knocked each other out of the way. And Kevin Harvick snuck by.
Yeah. Well, what? I mean, I hate Stenhouse, dude.
Yeah,
Being an Elliott fan,
yeah,
I hate Crash House. I mean, I don't know why they either. I mean, I don't get what he was trying to do there.
yeah.
You
Well,
know.
he was doing the same thing those guys were doing, was trying to make as much moves as he can to advance himself in there.
Yeah. But he
Uh,
took himself out. So
yeah, I mean,
I mean,
ultimately it was
get better at moving people if
it,
you're gonna
it,
move.
it was an attempt, and it didn't work out, and it actually caused both drivers to miss it because
Yeah.
Mr. Harvick just snuck on by and
Hey, good.
got that
Kudos
final
to him.
transfer spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kudos to him.
But that was probably the most chaotic of the heat races. Heat race number 3 had a little bit of drama. There were 2 cautions in that race. Denny Hamlin wound up winning that heat race number 3. And then Suarez and Brad K got into it, wrecking each other for last place. I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, Brad
I want to know
Keselowski
what
and Dan.
your thoughts are on that.
I
I mean,
yeah, okay.
you
Obviously,
put me on the spot with
yeah,
Elliot.
yeah.
So,
Okay,
what
so
are your thoughts
let
on that?
let me give you my thoughts on the Brad Keselowski incident as the resident Brad Keselowski fan. One of like 20 that are left. Um,
Yeah.
I thought it was really dumb. Because I mean, if you looked at the situation, there was 5 laps left in the race. Brad and Daniel were like half a lap off. Like neither one of them were, like they were basically racing for nothing. And Daniel Suarez just went in there and cleaned him out for the caution, which wound up working out in his favor because he did get into the transfer spot by just bulldozing everybody on the ensuing restarts. So I was less than thrilled by that. I thought it was more of a cheap shot than anything. Um, because I mean he just went in there, wrecked the guy for the caution.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it was just kind of frustrating.
I mean, is now with the rules in NASCAR,
Yeah.
the prior to the race, they said no more Hail Melons,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Do you think that maybe that Suarez move was a Hail Melon?
Not exactly. Because he didn't like, abuse track limits to go faster.
No, 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 no. But what I'm
But
saying, okay.
yeah,
All right. So,
are you
what
saying it was like a desperation move?
I'm saying, well,
Or
for one, it could be a desperation move, but
yeah.
it was a move that altered the end of the race,
Oh, 100%.
right?
I mean,
Which it's the Hail Melon rule, and that's what I'm gonna call it from now on. Okay,
right.
like just we're gonna put this right here on this podcast right now. The Hail Melon rule.
Yeah.
All right, it was always a rule, but they're going to enforce it more so that you can't go out there and wall ride.
Right.
But pretty much, it was a rule that was made up back when like that whole MWR stuff happened way back in
Yeah.
what '09 or whatever. Back in those days where you cannot act. And I wish I would have brought it up because now that
Well,
I'm thinking about it,
because here
but
I
you
got some.
can't do something that's gonna alter the
Yeah.
end of the race.
Yeah. I mean, I got some comments in the chat here. They said the Chastain rules for more things that are dangerous on the track. like wall riding and stuff. It's not necessarily a rule for race manipulation, which I mean, it's pretty cut and dry that Daniel Suarez cleaning up Brad Keselowski like that in the position they were in was a form of race manipulation.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty
But
obvious that's what it
there's a
was.
rule. There is a rule against race manipulation. I mean,
Yeah,
and that's I chat. You're probably 100% right in what you're saying, but I am pretty sure that the way that they put it is it was manipulating the end of the race
yeah,
and how the finishing order would have naturally came about.
yeah, and that's exactly what that situation did. No, we're talking about Daniel Suarez cleaning out Brad Keselowski to bring out a caution and reset the field in heat race number 3. But yeah, that was definitely race manipulation, and unfortunately, my guy was at the end of the stick on that one. But I mean, even the Ferraris call it Plan B. But I mean, here's the thing though, which is weird, is like obviously like you don't really want guys to get into the stigma of like manipulating races for their advantage. But the guys in the Fox booth, like Tony Stewart, Clint Boyer, they were constantly talking about like if you need a caution, you're gonna find that guy that's right near you and you're gonna spin him around so you can get that caution. Like the whole
Yep.
time, that's all they were talking about. So it was kind of one of those things where it's like I think in a normal race that would be like what are you doing? Don't do that.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
think given that it was an exhibition race on a little short track like that, it almost felt like there were no rules,
Right. Yeah.
which was
And I get
weird.
that. I get
Um,
that.
it,
No,
it
I mean, why? I mean, look, like I so if we were at Daytona or Atlanta or Charlotte with those big tracks and that happen, then I would frown upon it more.
yes,
You know what I mean? But whereas you're at like this little quarter mile bull ring, I mean, whatever, dump them.
yeah.
You know, screw it. Bring the caution out, and it's Brad K. So
Oh, hey, hey.
no feel, no feelings hurt.
But moving on, we've got the final heat race, probably the least eventful of the 4 heat races. There were no incidents in that heat race, and William Byron kind of walked away with it. Do you have any thoughts on heat race number 4?
Not really. No. Kind of cool to see Byron come out and win. I wish I would have watched that race because it was no yellows. It was probably just good, clean, hard racing.
Yeah,
Or good, clean racing, not hard racing, obviously, because nobody got dumped. So
yeah,
not that hard, but that's kind of what I wish we would have seen more of.
yeah, and that's kind of what we got a lot of last year.
Right.
Last year's clash was a lot of long green flag runs.
Yep.
It actually got so it was weird. Like if I compared
5
like
cautions last year. 5.
5 cautions compared to the 16 in the main event.
Oh, I
Um,
thought it was 100, but
yeah, it
I,
felt like it. But I definitely preferred it when it got a little bit green because like I remember like watching the clash last year and I'm like that went by really quick. I'm like I want more. That was fun and it's just over.
right.
And now this year I'm like okay no we've had enough clash right now.
Yeah.
This one was a little different, quite different. Two races in the Coliseum, vastly different from each other. And then we had 2 last chance qualifiers. There really wasn't anything exciting that happened in the LCQs.
No.
You had 50 lap races. Is it the only? It's the only track that small on the calendar. It's the only track that was under a half mile. There's a couple
Yeah.
of half miles, Martinsville and Bristol. But that was the smallest track on the schedule, little quarter mile. LCQ
Size of
one,
a football field. It's a
yeah,
football field.
it basically is a racetrack over a football field. So,
Yep.
the first LCQ, once again we had no yellows in that. Michael McDowell wound up winning that qualifying race. Um, and the probably the most notable thing that happened is coming to like 5 to go, the 21 car of Harrison Burton was in a transfer position and just completely missed the corner, gave up 2 spots, and wound up missing the main event
Dude, what was
because
up
of
with
that.
that? Like, what? I so I finally got to start watching the racing.
Yeah.
on the LCQs, right? And I was sitting there and I was watching it, and after seeing some of the highlights and everything that they did before the race, you're just watching people bump, and that's the only way to pass.
Yeah.
I'm sitting there watching a race, and I watched the 20 car set somebody up by entering the corner and getting the drive off and come through, and I was like, dude, that was a beautiful
Yeah.
pass and such a wonderful show of talent
Yeah.
when Bell did that, right?
Mm.
And then I'm like, okay, so this is gonna be cool. McDowell's gonna win. Bell's gonna come in. I think it was second, and then Harrison Burton's gonna be third place.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, that'd be cool to watch.
Yeah.
And then, where's Harrison Burton going? To the beach? Did he think it was over? Like, was he going surfing? Like,
I
what was
guess.
this? He just totally bombed the corner.
Yeah.
And
He gave up the spot to Todd Gilliland.
Yeah. Why? I wish I would have heard an interview, because I don't think they interviewed
No,
him
they
on
didn't.
what happened. But being the sim racer, you guys kind of can't see it over here, but yeah, me and Joe, we do a lot of sim racing. Being the sim racer, I think he was just putting a little bit too much rear brake in it,
Yeah.
going down and trying to get the car to turn coming in.
Yeah.
And he
It
must have
almost
went
like
a foot too far.
he had a little bit of wheel hop and then just missed the corner.
Right. Yep. So,
which unfortunate, but also it's only his second year, so
yep.
It's
a learning curve. Make it a lesson, not a mistake. Or make that mistake a lesson.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully he learned from that, and we don't see those kinds of mistakes, because that's definitely unfortunate, especially for that Wood Brothers team.
Right.
That really wants to be a part of these big marquee events like that, and because of a mistake on the driver, they were not in the race. And I feel like that hits the teams a lot differently than oh, you just got junked and you missed the race that way.
Right.
That's not your fault. But when your driver goes in there and just makes a mistake like that, I'm sure that the team had a little conversation, and it's like, hey, we were in position and you threw it away.
Right. I wonder if the team made him walk home.
You got to take the bus. We're going to hop on the jet.
Yeah. I don't see your ticket.
Yeah. One thing I do want to talk about, the LCQ one. Why was there a commercial break in the middle of a 50-lap heat race when they're clicking off laps at 13 seconds a lap?
Fox Sports.
Like that was like infuriating. No, because they were like 25 laps. They were halfway through this race, and then they went to commercial and came back, and there was like 7 laps left. And it's like,
right.
What are you doing? It's this tiny little track. You couldn't miss anything at any moment there. Like, there is no reason to throw a commercial break. You should have thrown the commercial break before the race started so that you can get the whole race in.
Right.
It was just kind of frustrating, because it's like, why? And then, we go to LCQ2, and that one went green all the way. But I think that one went green because they had Gwen Stefani in the booth just talking with everybody during the entire qualifying race. So they're like, oh, we got this interview going on.
Yeah, what was up with that?
I mean, they had people coming in and out of the booth all day.
But why was, I don't know. Why Gwen Stefani?
Celebrities there.
Yeah.
I don't know. She's friends with Clint Boyer, apparently.
No, Blake. That's Blake's wife.
Oh, right.
Okay.
There you go.
I get it, but bring in Blake Shelton. You know what I mean? Like, I want to watch those guys go at each other and talk stuff. I don't want to see.
What was really? I'm actually really glad they brought Gwen Stefani in there, because she was starting to tell this story of this party that she was at with the Boyers, and she's like, you remember that time you were totally wasted? And Clint was just like, whoa, I am on the air right now. And it was just really funny.
Yeah.
Because he's like, I'm working here. Can we not tell this story right now? And it was just like, it was just really funny.
We all know Clint likes to get down.
Yeah, of course.
And Kyle Busch.
But I think it's funny that we're talking about the Gwen Stefani thing, because there was not really anything exciting that happened in LCQ2.
Yeah.
Well,
man,
Yeah,
led every single lap.
yeah. Chase Elliott won. Oh my God. No, I'm just kidding. No, that was cool for Chase Elliott there because he was kind of in a position where he was going to make it either way because at that point in the
Right.
race, Bell had already advanced with the previous
Yep.
LCQ. So even if Chase didn't do well, he was going to be in with the points provisional.
Yep.
But he said, screw that, went out, won the LCQ, and that handed the provisional over to Austin Cindric in the two
Mhm.
car.
Yep.
But that was kind of it. That LCQ, not really a whole lot happened in that one.
Yeah, nothing really happened in either one of them, but it was nice to see some racing. You
Yeah,
know, I mean, we'll get on to why it was so nice to see some racing, I guess, in a little bit here, but
yeah,
it was nice to see some racing.
yeah. Well, I think it's time to move on to the main event,
The
and
crash.
we've got 16 cautions in that race, and
Ugh.
I completely filled up my notebook page, trying to make notes of all these cautions, every single one of them. The first half of the race I thought was really good.
It was,
I
yeah,
really enjoyed the first half of the race because you
right,
had you had a lot of 15 to 20 lap runs,
right.
mixed in there with just a handful of cautions, and it was like it wasn't that bad.
No.
The second half of the race completely different.
Oh, I
So
fell asleep.
yeah, so let's talk about that first half of the race. Obviously, we had several drivers that had contact with each other, and other than like a handful of incidents, most of the contact and cars going around came from the guy that was like 4 or 5 cars back, hitting that guy into that guy into that guy, and then the last car in front is the one that just gets spun.
Right.
Outside of there was an incident later in the race between the 4 and the 38. Um, that was the only one that was like, oh, that guy, wrecked that guy. Um,
Well, I don't want to say that.
yeah.
I
Well,
think there's another
no,
incident.
there's more. We'll get to it. That was the one that was like the big standout in my mind, where it was like, oh, that guy just like knocked that guy out of the way. That was like the one of the bigger ones. But we had Eric Jones. He got wrecked pretty early.
Yep.
Unfortunate for that team.
Yeah, very
Um,
unfortunate.
Blaney
Legacy racing.
Blaney got spun like 4 times in the race.
Yeah.
Not a good night for Ryan Blaney or Ryan Blaney fans.
No, it wasn't. It was a very bad night. I kind of felt bad.
Yeah.
I like Blaney. I mean, he's about the only Penske guy I like, so
Yeah.
I didn't like seeing him get spun so much.
Yeah. AJ Allmendinger got spun around, and then at one of the restarts there was apparently a miscommunication because at this point Almirola was still leading the race,
Yep.
and he was going to choose the bottom, but I guess like they hadn't told him like this was the choose lap. So he was just riding on the outside, and they're like, okay, we've got 2 to go. And then they're like, choose. So then he was already on the outside of that cone and got stuck up there.
Yeah.
And that wound up completely derailing his race because he was just not able to get to the bottom. And he just went backwards in a flash.
See, I was wondering, before they had explained that to us, like, I'd seen Amarola up there, and I was like,
Yeah, why are you on the outside?
what is going on? But then I'd also seen other cars be able to kind of hold somebody off up
Yeah,
there. And I almost thought that maybe he was thinking, and I'm trying to like process all this real fast
right.
because you're just so flabbergasted.
Yeah,
Like, I thought maybe he was thinking that he could just get a good jump
yeah,
and then be able to hold the guy on the bottom and
yeah.
kind of choke him coming off of the corner, get a
Well,
good
the,
run.
the problem was the car on his bottom was Denny Hamlin.
Right.
And,
And then he's not going to be held down.
no, Denny is not going to be held down. He is not that kind of driver. He's really good at short tracks. And,
Yes.
I think as good as the 10 car was, it wasn't anywhere near as fast as any of the JGR cars that
No.
night. So then we went green for a little bit, and then there was another restart where Bubba Wallace wound up getting into the 11, knocking him up out of the way after a little bit of contact from behind for Martin Truex.
Right.
And that wound up kind of just derailing the entire night for the 11 because as it kept falling further and further back, who gets into the 11 other than the one and only Ross Chastain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here we go,
Like,
season 2.
yeah,
On
Ross.
verse 11.
Yeah, Ross Chastain he just sent it into the corner and just knocked him out of the way, and you know,
I mean, I'm not sorry.
no, I mean
No,
it's
not at
Denny
all.
Hamlin, so you know,
Yeah, yeah,
but
I'm not.
it's one of those things. So it's like, you know, the 11 and the 1 had this, you know, it was very one sided with the 11 antagonizing the 11 and the 11 saying, "Oh, I'm gonna get you back," but then nothing happened
Right.
all
Yeah.
year long. That happened. And you would think that Ross would be like, okay, let's simmer down in the off season, and then the first time they're back on the track, let's run into the 11 again. Let's get this
Yeah.
going right off the bat.
Yeah. Let's
Um,
let's find out how much I can push him before he actually finally pushes back, right?
yeah,
I mean,
that's a very dangerous game to play, but
well,
you know, that's Ross
it's Denny
Chastain.
Hamlin, dude.
Yeah,
What is Denny Hamlin?
yeah.
I mean, how big of a list does Denny Hamlin have of people he's gonna get back?
Oh, it's massive.
Right, but how many people has he got back?
Nobody.
Exactly. So, I mean, that's like someone, oh, I'm going to get you back. Oh, okay. Wait for it. Plenty of chances. You
I'll
didn't
get
get
it.
me
I'll
back.
get it back when it matters.
Yeah. And then you didn't even get him back at the championship race that you weren't even in?
Yeah,
Like, I mean,
nothing.
yeah, I'm not.
Yeah,
I see where Ross is coming from. And
yeah.
I would do the same thing.
Oh yeah.
I mean, come on, dude. Get me back, you know?
Yeah, I know.
So,
But
yeah.
and then there was a pretty much a 2-lap shootout after that, and then we were at halftime.
Yep.
Halftime show, Wiz Khalifa. What'd you think of the
Boring.
Wiz Khalifa show?
I wasn't a fan.
Oh no.
I mean, that's not really my style of
Yeah,
music. You know,
I thought it was kind of cool. It seemed like a lot of people in the crowd really enjoyed it.
I
Which
mean,
was, you
yeah,
know, kind of the main purpose of it was
right,
to create that fan energy, that fan
yeah,
event, and
right,
bring in that younger audience and be like, hey, you can enjoy this music you like, and then here's some race cars,
right,
you know, also.
yeah.
Unfortunately, after the halftime break, the whole race went to shit.
I think
um
that they replaced all of the actual race car drivers with iRacing bottom split racers.
I think you're right. um because it took us like an hour to
Yeah,
get 10 laps in.
right.
After the halftime break, it was just restart, crash, restart, crash, restart, crash over and over and over again. It's just,
I I think what they need to do next year is say, okay, in the first, we're gonna do the heat races. We're
yeah,
gonna have the people transfer and everything else. But if you're not in the top whatever
yeah.
before the
I
first half, then
They should cut the
those
field in
people
half.
get eliminated.
Cut the field in
Right.
half. You know,
Yes.
you're starting 28 cars, 27
Yep.
actually, 27 cars.
I'll do 28. It's an
Yeah,
even 14.
yeah. Do 28 cars next week, 14 for the second half. That's all you got
Yep.
to do. And
It
you're
makes the
gonna,
racing so much better.
yeah. I think that would add a lot more excitement to it,
Yep.
a little bit more drama.
Mhm.
But that also may lead to more crashes in the front half of the race.
Well, then you get used to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, really, when going up to the first half of the race, it was
I
like,
mean,
oh, okay, yeah, this is nice. This is, I can watch this.
yeah.
I even started thinking like, okay, maybe the Coliseum isn't going to be that bad.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, they proved me wrong.
The other thing I would do, if you're not gonna like cut the field in half at the race, I would just reduce the car count. So they were advancing 5 cars from each heat. I would do 4 cars. 3 cars from
Yep.
the LCQs, I would do 2 cars, and then you'd have the 1 provisional. That brings your field to 21 cars. And I think taking those 6 cars off the track would
Yeah.
help clean it up just a little bit,
A little
especially
bit.
being just a tiny track like that.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it makes it more exclusive too, because then you
Right.
have bigger drama of like who's going to go home. Because the only cars that really went home were the backmarker teams and then RFK. So
Yeah.
like that was it. I mean, Uh,
It was so sad. I was sitting there at the end of the race and was like, wait, Busher wasn't even in it. Like
no,
I knew that Brad K didn't make it, but I was like,
yeah,
wait, even Busher didn't make it. Like where's RFK at? Like that really
yeah,
fucking sucks.
yeah. My chat's saying pole winners and clash winners. That's it.
That's the
But
All-Star race.
yeah, I agree, but I disagree because I think that that format works for the All Star race.
Right.
But I think the Clash works because of the heat races and
Right.
the LCQs and the fact that nobody is technically locked in other than that points provisional.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
know,
that's it. You
and
know, and
I really like having everybody race their way in.
yep.
You know,
Yeah, no, I agree. I think maybe we don't need to keep going to the Coliseum. Don't get me wrong. It's a very nice venue to have the
yeah,
race at, right? Like I mean, don't get me wrong, but I think maybe we should kind of switch it up to like another local track somewhere. You know,
yeah,
like dude, keep it with the small tracks, but just go to
yeah.
a local track or something.
So to counter that point, I would just make it completely optional. My chat's saying why make Rick Ware Racing or BJ McLeod fly out to LA? You know,
You don't have to
you don't
go.
have to.
Right. It's not a requirement. Like
Yeah,
if BJ McLeod doesn't want to make it, if he doesn't want to go, he didn't. It's not winning the clash or being in the clash or participating at the clash
yeah.
doesn't help your
Well, so
season
so
out
there's
at
they're
all.
saying charter drivers have to.
No,
I would just
no.
make I would just make it so it's not a requirement. Even if you're a charter driver, just make it anybody that wants to show up can show up.
Uh,
You can do the heat racing,
charter
race your way in.
charter drivers were required to
Yeah, the
show
charter
up.
drivers were required to show up for the
Really?
clash. Yeah,
Well, if you got a charter, then you got the money.
yeah,
That's the way I see it.
yeah. But as far as that second half of the race, that was just caution city. I mean, we had Gibbs went around, Harvick went around, McDowell went around, the 38 went around, the 20 and the 16 went around, and then Kyle Busch got totally dumped by Joey Logano
Totally.
completely.
Yep. Which I'm not a very big Kyle Busch fan,
Yeah,
but like, what the hell, man?
yeah.
You know? I mean, he's with this new team, trying to start a new year, and then Joey Logano just
Well, and the thing was,
bulldozed him.
Joey Logano was so far back, and Kyle Busch was already in the middle of three wide, and he just
Yeah,
sent it in there and just
he did.
what are you doing, dude?
I mean,
like,
why? Why would
yeah,
you do that? I don't know. That's why I'm a even bigger not Joey Logano fan.
yeah, yeah. It was just I was just like a really bad, just dumb move
Yeah,
on Logano's part.
uncalled for. Uncalled for.
Apparently, he missed his breaking point and felt bad after an hour on the morning drive.
Oh,
So apparently, it was just a
sure,
mistake.
sure.
Yeah.
Because
Uh,
he's the reigning champion. He just
yeah.
makes mistakes, right?
I mean, I'm a big fan of like taking what a driver says. That's what happened. Obviously, Kyle Busch is going to feel differently about it because he was the
I
one
am too.
roughed up. But I'm a big fan of like if the driver says that's what happened, that's usually what happened. In most situations, there's definitely times where you can call out BS, right?
Right.
There's definitely
Yeah.
times where it's like you're just trying not to get in trouble on the TV interview.
Right.
But I think with this situation, I think there's definitely some plausible deniability that what he said is true, that he just completely missed his breaking point because like my chat says, a lot of people missed breaking points tonight. I mean,
Oh
if
yeah.
if that was okay, we just talked about Harrison Burton missing a corner like that.
Yep.
If Harrison Burton was in that same position Joey Logano is, Kyle Busch would also be going around with how
Hmm.
he missed that corner. So I think it's definitely plausible that what Joey says is true, that he did just miss the corner.
I I mean, dude, he's a champion.
Yeah,
He's the reigning champion.
right.
You're right there in the middle of a pack. Like, I mean, that's not something I feel like a professional reigning champion does. Like Harrison Burton, yeah, he missed it. It's his second year, like I mean, I don't even know if he really missed his breaking point.
Yeah.
I think, and the way I feel what happened with Harrison Burton, and correct
I
me if
mean,
I'm wrong, was he just had too much rear brake.
yeah.
So,
But I mean, at the same time, like
it,
I've
it, it
every makes mistakes. My chat says Chase Elliott has made mistakes.
oh yeah,
I've
I know.
watched Brad Keselowski make mistakes. I've watched
Oh
Kyle
yeah,
Busch make mistakes.
I get it.
You know,
I'm
every
not
driver
saying
makes mistakes once in a while. So
I'm.
I don't think there was anything malicious in that contact. I think there were other situations that were definitely way more malicious
Oh yeah,
than the incident with Joey Logano and Kyle Busch. Um,
Bubba Wallace.
yeah. Um, we'll get to that one in a bit. We still got a lot. We're like, as far as my notes go right now, we're only on lap 86 out of 150. So
Right.
we got
Yeah.
a lot more to cover. Um, after that one, where Kyle Busch went around, we actually got a little bit of green flag racing. We did go about 15 laps there, so it's finally seemed like everybody had kind of been like, okay, we don't want to ride around under pace laps anymore. An hour has passed. We've only gone 10 laps because we're not counting caution laps like we normally do. So then we went a little bit green. Um, and Justin Haley got spun around at that point. And then we had a short restart, and the 14 came around. And then Ryan Blaney got put in the wall again at that
Hmm.
point, just increasing his problems at that point. And then we had 10 laps to go, and there was some kind of mechanical failure on the 34 Michael McDowell's machine,
Yep.
which caused him to stop because you can't really get to pit road, or the not pit road, but that infield pit area
Yeah.
under green, which we later found out was because he ran out of fuel.
Yep.
And then there was a couple other cars that ran out of fuel because they didn't refill the cars after the last chance qualifier. So, what
Because
do you
they
think
couldn't.
about that? Why do you think those teams chose not to refuel the cars?
It wasn't they chose not to. There was only limited stuff that you could actually do in the infield.
Yeah.
So
No, but they had the opportunity after the LCQs. They were off the track. They could have filled it in the garage
no.
areas.
Well, from what I understood, from what they said in the booth, they couldn't refuel the car.
Yeah,
Like that's the what I what.
that was what they said initially, but they did come back and say later that that was the option. That was just misinformation from the Fox booth.
Oh well, see, I
Yeah,
didn't hear that part of it because
yeah,
by time by time that all happened, I was just like, please get this thing
yeah.
over with.
I
Done
actually
that.
had Adam message me, and he got the correct information for me.
Oh okay.
So that was information that was improperly relayed over the Fox broadcast.
Yep.
But it was a choice on the team's behalf to not put fuel in those cars after the LCQ because under normal circumstances they probably didn't need them. But when you spend
Right.
an
Yeah.
hour just putzing around under caution, that unfortunately made the difference. So we had a couple cars run out of fuel, and then in the closing laps, that is when the drama starts.
Yeah.
Well, some of the biggest drama of the night. You had a restart. Bubba Wallace, Austin Dillon, beating and banging off each other. They're both giving each other shots, and then Austin Dillon just goes in there and just cleans him out.
Hey,
Yeah,
if you're gonna beat and bang, I give it to the 3 car for just not putting up with it. You
yeah.
know, I mean, that's the
I
way
think
I see it.
it's.
If you're gonna wear the badge, you gotta do it.
I
You
mean,
know.
I get it, but at the same time, I feel like there's a difference between hitting the guy so he hits the outside wall versus just kind of nudging him out of the way a little bit.
I mean, enough's enough, dude.
Yeah,
I guess that's where our differences are.
yeah,
I I literally jumped out of my seat screaming and hollering like woohoo! Not a
yeah.
big fan of the old 23 car, and I So okay, I didn't really like jump out of the seat. All right,
Well, yeah.
I thought it was, but watching the beat and bang, and I was like, all right, this is interesting, you
Yeah.
know. And then finally, Austin was like, dude, this is enough. I'm done.
Yeah.
And maybe took it a little bit too far,
Yeah, he
right?
definitely went a little too far. I don't think he needed to
But
turn him around and put him in the wall, but
I don't condone the actions of Bubba Wallace after that had happened.
yeah.
Because you had seen Bubba get into other people, and yeah, Bubba was up there racing for a win.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you're gonna start using your shoulders to push someone out of the way, and then finally they push back, and maybe it was a little too hard, but don't come over and just stop in the middle of the track and
Yeah.
try to ruin his night because your night got ruined. Like,
Yeah, the retaliation afterwards was, and we've, seen that before
oh yeah,
with the retaliation from the 23
with
team.
him.
So, yeah.
Yep.
You didn't let me finish, but I was saying that. But yeah. Hopefully he kind of calms down a little bit. Obviously tempers were flaring. I get what he's saying. If you're late in a race like that and someone just takes you out, like you're gonna be mad at the guy, whether
Yeah.
you roughed that guy up first and he got back at you or not. Like no matter what, when you're coming down to 5 to go in a race like that, when it's as difficult as it is to pass at the LA Coliseum and you get wrecked like that, your race is officially over at that point. Like
Right.
there's no getting back to the
No.
field, especially in a non-points race where it's like, okay, I'll just restart, get as many spots as I can, because those spots don't mean anything
Right.
in this particular race. The only thing that matters in that race is getting up there and getting the win. And when you get knocked out of it, that's really unfortunate.
Yeah. It's unfortunate for Bubba, trust me.
Yeah.
But it doesn't hurt my feelings at all.
Yeah. And then probably the biggest shocker, I actually considered it a shocker. The final restart, Kyle Busch. Now this guy has driven all the way through the field. He's been passing guys on the outside, on the inside, everywhere.
Yeah.
He gets
Yep.
up to second, realizes he's not fast enough to catch Truex, sees his teammate is faster, actually moves out of the way and lets a teammate go.
Crazy.
Right? Like, was I the only one that was just like, is that really Kyle Busch driving that 8 car right now?
Right. Yeah.
Because when was the last time you had ever seen Kyle Busch work with a teammate like that while at JGR?
I could do this forever, and I'm never gonna think of.
Yeah, yeah.
No.
That's the thing. It's
No,
like
I never did.
I don't feel like Kyle Busch was ever like that big team player. Like he never like came across to me as like the team guy.
Right.
He was always like, I'm Kyle Busch, I'm the best, I'm going out doing the best thing. My chat's saying Busch loved working with Gordon when he was at Hendrick. So
when he was at Hendrick, yeah.
Yeah. I guess that's it.
You did ask about JGR though.
Yeah, I was specifically talking about JGR.
Yeah.
That's like.
But then again,
way back at the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
But we're talking, yeah, JGR. They all hate each other. Nobody wants to work well together. And here you got Kyle Busch over to Richard Childress, working with a teammate, knowing, hey, I can't beat this guy. Let's move over. Let my teammate try to see if he can catch him. Unfortunately, neither of them were able to. But Martin Truex wound up winning the race, and then we had Austin Dillon and Kyle Busch, and we got a podium celebration at the end of the race.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the podium celebration?
It would have been nice to see it.
Right?
I mean, what they showed everybody get their medal.
Yeah.
And then I was watching on Peacock, or no, not Peacock. I was watching on Fox Sports online, the app, and it was like, oh, coverage is over.
Yeah, they showed everybody on the podium. Ben Kennedy comes up and is like, here's your medal, here's your medal, here's your medal, and then he steps out of the way, and they're like, all right, that's it, see ya. And we didn't get that. I I really like the podium. I think they should make the podium a regular thing.
No,
No,
no, it's
no,
not a NASCAR thing.
that's true.
The podium is something you get in, well, pretty much
Literally every
every
other motorsport.
other motorsport that there is, but NASCAR. But it's not a NASCAR. NASCAR always had the winner's circle.
Yeah.
Kiss the trophy girl. You know, I mean, like, that's one of the traditional things that I like. Do now the All Star race,
Mhm.
sure.
Yeah.
You know, like, maybe I think maybe we need to have a couple more of these events like this. Maybe
Yeah.
take a couple points races out,
Now, how do
and
you
then
feel
turn
about we talk about like NASCAR's crown jewels. What
right.
about doing a podium celebration on those crown jewels? The Daytona 500, the Coke 600,
Daytona
the Southern 500.
500. Daytona 500. I'm gonna say no.
Okay,
Okay,
that one makes sense.
the Southern 500. It wouldn't be a bad idea.
Yeah.
Coke 600, not a bad idea. Go back to Indy. You know what I mean? We could maybe possibly see something at Indy, but then again, Indy was always, celebration of the winner of the Indy 500. You
Right.
don't celebrate who finished second and third. You always
Yeah.
celebrated the winner. Um, so yeah, I think there could be some events where it would be cool. The
Yeah.
dirt race,
Yeah.
okay,
I think the
Bristol
dirt race
dirt
would
race.
work.
I think the Bristol dirt race would be cool.
Yeah.
I think they need to bring in heat racing at the Bristol dirt race.
They do have heat
That's
racing.
but they don't. So, all right,
It's set the field heat racing. It's not send
right.
people home heat racing.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
I meant like okay. So if you don't make the field, say you get all the people that didn't make it because it's a points race, give
Yeah.
them so many points, but send people home, make it, you know, that little that it'll make it that little bit more special.
Yeah. But at the same time, my chat's making a good point. You can't eliminate people in a points race.
Why not?
I don't know. I feel like that would just be weird.
I mean, it would, but why not?
Yeah.
Why can't you do it? You can do it. Everybody who got eliminated, you know, everybody who finished this place, and this place in the elimination gets that many points.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you're not gonna get as many points as if you were in the race, but
Right.
I think it would make the racing a lot more exciting that
Yeah.
way, and it would bring more in. Bristol dirt is cool, don't get me wrong, but it's just a slick Bristol track is all it is.
Yeah.
It's not that special.
Yeah. I don't know. It's something fun to think about. I really wish they did more with the podium finish. I think it would have been better if we
Yeah.
actually got the full celebration of that to actually see
Right.
what the effect of that actually was at the racetrack, because
Yeah.
we kind of just like got like this quick snippet of, oh, here's everybody on the podium, and then that's it. We didn't get to see like the honoring the first guy, second fly, here's your podium finish or anything like that.
And,
So it's kind of hard to sit there and be like, oh, was that cool, was that not cool, because we didn't get to see the full celebration.
and like in F1, right? Like when they do the podium finishes, they get the national anthem of their country
Yeah.
that they're from played, right? Like I think it would have been
Yeah.
cool if they went up to all the drivers and said, "All right, if you're
Did they?
on the podium, what song would you like to be played?"
Yeah.
Because we're all American except for
Right.
Suarez. But I mean, let them pick a song or something.
Yeah.
And
I don't know, that'd
make
be
it a
cool.
celebration. So,
State song.
well, there's a lot of North Carolina
Yeah.
people.
Apparently
But yeah,
they
no, I get it. Yeah.
apparently they also got the podium wrong. Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon were standing on the wrong sides of the podium.
Yeah, I thought that was funny.
Um,
But they didn't have it staggered enough.
no,
Usually,
they were like the
usually it's
same
staggered,
level, and then
like,
it was
yeah,
up here. Normally,
yeah,
it's like this or
yeah,
however you want to do it. They're staggered, but it wasn't.
no.
So
I was even
I
trying to
wish
think,
I
like,
wish we
is
got
this
to see
right or
more.
is it wrong or what?
Yeah. I wish we got to see more of the medal ceremony. Just to see like, because like the thing is like we didn't get to see like what kind of an impact does that have on the finish of a NASCAR race. You know,
Right.
we didn't get to see that different celebration.
Well, it didn't
You
have
know,
much of an impact on Kyle Busch.
no, it didn't.
I seen one of his interviews afterwards, and Jeff Gluck goes, "How'd you get back up to the front?" I passed him, Jeff.
Yeah, he passed everybody. I love that. So
Same old Kyle Busch.
that's about it for the actual racing. Um, you know, given that we're a few days later, there were a couple of breaking news stories, the past couple of days. Let's talk about the first one. Todd Gilliland is not going to be full time this year. Zane
Yeah.
Smith is driving 6 races in that 38 car.
Are you surprised?
Um, kind of, but not really at the same time
Right. That's
because
what.
like Zane Smith is like super talented. Like
Yep.
he's gonna be a cup driver someday.
Right.
He already filled in for Chris Buescher last year in the cup race and did really well at Gateway.
Yep.
And I think the Ford Motor Camp really wants to get him more experience, and Todd Gilliland just did not get the job done last
Nope.
year.
Nope. And I haven't really ever seen him get the job done.
Yeah, he's been like even when he was running Xfinity Series, he was running like in that middle front, that 10th to 5th range a lot, but he wasn't
Yep.
really up there like winning a ton of races or anything
Right.
like that. And same thing when he was running trucks. So let's see.
Yep.
Zane's running Phoenix, Dega, the Coke 600, Sonoma, Texas, and the Roval next year. So
The 600 would be a true testament of his athleticism.
yes, I think that's a fantastic selection of races.
Yep.
For him to get tested out. Obviously, that means that 38 team is not. He's running a third car for front row. He's running the 36. So that's what he's doing for the 500. But then he's sharing that ride with Todd Gilliland. But that means that 38 car is not going to be playoff eligible.
No. Nope.
Which means Michael McDowell once again will be carrying the banner for Front Row Motorsports this year.
I mean, okay.
Yeah.
They need to do. Really need to do something over there to try to get more talent bringing into that front row motorsport, though.
Yeah.
You can't just have it all riding on Michael McDowell. I mean,
Yeah.
granted, he's a great guy and everything, but he's just I don't think he's as talented as Zane Smith.
Yeah.
Right. So get Zane that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Let Todd Gilliland, obviously he's got a contract, bind with them, so he obviously has, they don't, I guess, want to kill his contract and just pull Zane Smith in. I
Yeah.
think Zane's going for a championship in trucks again this year,
Yeah.
right?
He's going for the trucks again.
So, let him focus on that more,
Yeah. And
and
get
I'm
that cup experience because
right,
I have a feeling this is setting up the stage that he's most likely going to take over that 38 car full time
right.
next season.
And that's a big step too, right? Because I
Yeah.
mean, he's gonna go from truck full time right into cup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like in no Xfinity, but it's not the same as it used to be, where you kind of have to go,
Yeah. I
in
mean,
that
we saw
in that
that with Ty Gibbs as well. He
right.
skipped trucks completely, just went right into the Xfinity series and
Yep.
then right into the Cup series.
Right.
So you're not seeing that full like that traditional career path where you get into the trucks, you run trucks for 2 or 3 years, then you run Xfinity for 2 or 3 years, and then now you got a cup ride. They're getting those guys in with just 1 or 2 years in trucks, Xfinity, whichever one it is, and then they're putting them in the cup car as long as there's a ride for them.
Yep. Which I mean, it used to be you would come from ARCA, go into the trucks, which
Yeah.
is more horsepower, a little bit bigger tracks,
Mm-hmm.
and then you would get acclimated to that, and then you would go into the Xfinity car, which was a little more horsepower, a little less downforce, bigger tracks, more races,
Yep.
get them conditioned there, and then they would go up into the big high horsepower cup cars.
Yeah.
Well, now they're not horsepower cup cars anymore.
Right.
So why not go from the truck over here to this? They're almost the same dang horsepower these
Yeah.
days. So that's cool to see Zane Smith do that.
Yep. And then also Connor Daly is going to be attempting the 500 with the money team.
I did not see that one.
That dropped.
That's cool.
That dropped earlier today, actually.
That's cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I worked 12 hours today, so I
Yep.
didn't get to see that one, but
And
that
then
would be awesome. So
one. Go ahead.
so is he possible for the Indy 500 Coke 600 Memorial Day weekend?
Depends on if the money team is going to put him in the car again, or if he can find a different car. I think right now they just announced Daytona 500 attempts, so
Okay.
there's going to be a lot of fresh new faces attempting the Daytona 500 this year.
Yeah, people are gonna finally go home.
It's drivers are actually going to go home in the
Right.
duels because
Yeah.
there's only going to be 4 spots available. So
Yeah, I think that's gonna be awesome to finally see. These guys didn't make it because you used to see that
yeah,
like every week back when I was growing
yeah.
up. You know?
Well, and the thing is, like, it's not just like, you know, Cody Wares and drivers like that are not going to make the race. Like, you've got a
Right.
bunch of big, like, talented drivers: Jimmy Johnson, Connor Daly, and then there's some more. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I didn't write down a list, but there's a lot of like really big drivers, some talented drivers that are going to be trying to make the 500 this year, and
Yep.
that's going to make those duels very, very interesting this year.
I can't wait.
So on the subject of the 500, who have you got to win the Daytona 500 this year?
I mean, it's a little early, but I mean, so if you're gonna go statistically and all that, right?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, it's hard to count out Hamlin and Logano.
right.
Um, it's hard to count out Stenhouse. It's hard to count out Austin Dillon. This year, I mean, I would if I had to pick someone other than one of my favorite drivers like Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. I mean, you want to see them.
Yeah,
I feel like you could see that 3 car with the help and from what you're seeing already this year
with the
with
teamwork.
Kyle Busch being
Yeah,
over there with the teamwork, it's hard to count out an RCR car.
yeah.
I can't say which one, but I feel like it's gonna be an RCR Daytona 500.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you already know who I'm gonna pick to win
Yeah,
the
and
Daytona 500.
I mean, you're really not far off.
No, that's the thing is like it's not a bad pick,
No, it's
and
not.
I'm gonna be going with my boy Brad Keselowski.
Yeah,
That team is hungrier than ever to get back to victory lane to win a race. Brad himself is more determined than ever to win a race, and he is one of the most talented super speedway racers out there right now.
and he's
Um,
got one of the most talented spotters for super
yes,
speedway racing
TJ
too.
Majors
Like,
up on the
I mean,
box there. It's super hard to not count out Brad Keselowski. And I think this is finally his year to get that Daytona 500. The dude has won everything else on super speedway races except the 500, and he came so close until he got wrecked by Joey Logano
yeah.
in the closing lap. So I think definitely this year is the year of Brad Keselowski winning that Daytona 500.
I mean, I can't say you're crazy for saying that
Yeah.
at all.
Now,
I just
if we were talking about like, oh, who's going to win Kansas? Oh, Brad Keselowski. That'd be
yeah.
that'd be a little different. But
That's a little bit of favoritism, but
yeah,
okay.
at that point, it's like, oh,
All
I'm just
right.
picking my favorite driver.
Yeah.
But no, I not only is it my favorite driver, I do think that legitimately Brad Keselowski has a really good shot at winning the 500 this year. He won his dual race last year, was in contention in almost the entire race, probably because he was wrecking everybody last year. But I think he's got another good shot this year. Um,
But he's one of those guys you look at when you go to
oh
a
yeah,
plate race. I
yep,
mean, like he's got a ton of talent from working with Dale Earnhardt Jr.
yep,
for all those years,
and having
and
TJ up on the
having
box
TJ
is
Majors
just
up there on the box. I mean, that guy. They said Dale Earnhardt sees the wind. I swear, for spotters, TJ Majors
yeah,
is the guy that sees the wind. You know, he's
yeah,
just the he can see the energy building up the lap before it actually ever progresses, and that's something that I don't think a lot of people actually understand out there is how much the spotter drives the car
yeah,
at a plate race. You know, it's almost like you can't win without a good spotter at a plate race.
right, for sure. So, all right, I think that about wraps it up for today. We only had the one race to talk about this week. The next show will be after Speed Weeks. One of the ideas I was suggested, would you like to get together next weekend for a small show and we'll try to do some playoff predictions?
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Before next, like this weekend coming up.
Yeah, this weekend coming up, we'll do like a preseason show where we kind of make predictions on the season.
Yeah, I could probably stop in
Okay.
for an hour or so. Yeah,
All right. Yeah.
that'd be no problem.
All right. So keep an eye out. We might be doing a preseason show next week. Other than that, we'll see you guys after the Daytona 500, where we will break down the two dual races, the truck race, the Xfinity race, and the Cup Series race. That'll be a big weekend of plate racing to break down. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and if you're watching this on video, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye
Yep.
everybody.
Thanks guys. Appreciate you. See you next time.
Yep. Bye.